Hello everybody. Today's pattern is the Buffalo Skull Keyring by Creative All. This pattern is linked in the video description. After we get it cut out, we're going to be using 3 different colors of dye. These are the EcoFlow colors. We will be using Sunshine Yellow, Bison Brown, and Timber Brown. Let's get started. For today's pattern, we're just using some scrap. I had to estimate it's approximately 3 millimeters thick. The neat thing about this pattern, the designer included little guides where you could use larger than your regular stitching hole punch to help get these tighter radiuses punched. So that's what we're going to start with, assuming I have the right size. These are just cheap Harbor Freight punches that I've attempted to sharpen, so hopefully they'll be good to go. Okay, now I'm trying to double check to make sure that that's all the large holes. Okay, for the next step in the process, I need to glue the horns together. The creator of this pattern has greatly overestimated my ability to cut a pattern that matches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and glue them together best that I can. And if I have any issues stitching it, then I'll probably just remake this piece. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any leather glue, so I'll be attempting to use contact cement. Let's see how this goes. And remember, use this in a well-ventilated area. Oh, and the reason I didn't go ahead and dye these pieces, I'm expecting them to not line up well enough to be useful. So, this is, we'll say attempt 1. Also, I'm hoping that the dye will hide the crimes. Bonus points if you're familiar with that reference. Okay, now I'm going to let this sit until it's no longer sticky. Alright, so we're back. They're no longer tacky. I'm going to try something to get these lined up. is I know my cutting is leaving a bit to be desired. Okay, here goes nothing. Already trying to pull different directions. And that would explain it right there. I about messed up. Okay, I'm going to give this a little bit of time to cure. Okay, I'm going to go try something that I just thought about. I've got a sanding drum for a Dremel. I'm wondering if I can sand this and make these line up better. If it works, I won't be remaking this piece. If it doesn't work, I will be remaking it. So we'll see in a second. Okay, what I had in mind worked somewhat. So, I think what I'm just going to do is go ahead and dye it and assemble it, and I'll make it better next time. Alright, so I'm going to start with dyeing the teeth. For that, we're going to use EcoFlow Sunshine Yellow. And I'm just going to be applying this with a regular Q-tip. Alright, for the rest of the jaw and for the skull itself, we are going to be using Timber Brown. This is also getting applied with a regular Q-tip. Alright, since this isn't getting down into the holes, I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to use my syringe method. I filled my syringe up with some of the dye. Start to get just a micro drip coming out. And touch it to the inside of the hole. And that right there, that big drop that I did, that's why I am going ahead and doing that now. We're doing the holes now, because I could just work more dye into the whole piece to make that big spot not be obvious. Okay, since all of these holes are going to be the same color, I'm going to go ahead and treat them as well. Okay, since I need to do the detail work by the teeth again and this poof is kind of screwed, I'll switch to the clean poof. Because I'm certain it's made it into the comments of this video by this point. Question as to why am I using a Q-tip versus a dauber? The simple answer is so far I wasn't satisfied with the quality of this build. I've already messed up in a few different ways. So I was fully expecting to trash this one and recut it. So I didn't want to dirty my daubers. I didn't have to. I think I'm getting a pretty good job done anyway. And now for the horns. Well, I guess I'll be right back. I need to clean my syringe so that I can get these horns. Now, on second thought, just to expedite this, I'll just use a dauber. For this one, we're going to be using Bison Brown. Okay, I'm not going to worry about cleaning this. I've got spots in there. And yes, I know I'm putting this on pretty thick, and I'm wanting the horns to be much darker than the rest of the skull. And after those dry, we'll be back for more. Alright, so here we go. Now, all of the dye is dry, and I've got to sew this thing together. We gotta pick which dye I'm going to use. Or not dye, you gotta pick which thread I'm going to use. Got too much stuff all around. I need a bigger work table. Okay, I'm thinking one of these 6. Now, talking to a friend of mine, trying to get more detail about what someone wants to see in one of these videos. I guess I'm going to try to explain my process. Which I know I've got to have the thread that goes well with this very dark brown and this lighter brown. The yellow doesn't work. I think this one might. Yeah, I think this color is what we'll go with. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and prep a couple sets of needles just to expedite the process as I'm putting the pattern together. Okay, thinking about the advice that was given to me by this girl on what she'd like to see in the videos, wants to see more of the process. So just to explain what I'm doing with the thread, just to make it easier on myself, I went ahead and put all my needles on one thread. I'm cutting a piece approximately 4 times the length of the stitch that I need to make. And to finish, or to attach the needle to the thread, see if I can get this framed up well. What I'm doing is I'm leaving approximately 1 inch, and I am piercing the thread with the needle. Now this is a woven thread instead of a twisted thread. You can do it with either. And just to give you an example, I don't know if this will show up well, but woven versus twisted. I'll pierce the thread as close to the middle as possible. I'm wanting to get an equal amount of thread on either side of the needle. Oh, and just because some people don't know this, when doing hand stitching with leathercraft, you want blunted needles, or else you're going to end up with bloody fingers. Okay, I've pierced the needle, or pierced the thread. I've got approximately half the thread on either side of the needle. I pull that over the eye to where it's that length, or to where it's, completely in. Then I'm gripping the thread with, we'll say my right hand over here. Gripping the thread that goes to the spool with the right hand and using my other fingers to slide the loop, or slide the pierced thread back toward the eye of the needle. After I get the pierced thread touching the needle, I use these two fingers to brace that piece and pull the slack back through. I'm never pulling against the pierced piece. I'm just letting it slide. And then I measure out my length. Approximately how much thread I want, plus an inch or two for my piercing. I make my cut with my non-thread cutting scissors, just because I don't have a decent pair of thread cutting scissors. Pierce this end. And you see right there, I've got just one little piece of thread going over. That will not do well. So pull back through, get a little bit better angle. See, there, now I have about half on either side. And then same thing as before. Pull it through, and then push it back. Alright, I'll finish prepping the rest of these, and then we'll be back in a second. Alright, for the next part, I need to go ahead and get the key ring attached to the jaw piece. I will be using a rivet to do it. In addition, I've got my anvil and my rivet setter. Notice the shape of it. Now, some people would do this with a hammer, but I'm living in a place where I'm concerned about making too much noise. So let me show you what I do instead. Let's take a little trip. Alright, this is my arbor press. It's a Harbor Freight special. If you wanted to do a similar setup, feel free. And what I'll do is I'll place the anvil down. Got my key ring, I'm putting it in place. Now I've got to decide which end I want the visible head on. I want it to be visible from the back, so I'll stick the stud through the base. Place the base on the anvil. Put the cap on. And now I'll press. And I'm not trying to press it very hard because I will end up crushing the shaft of that stud. So, that's perfect. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now, we start by attaching the horn piece to the skull piece, and then the jaw piece goes on that. Now, the tutorial video, which is provided by Creative All, the designer of this pattern, shows this on top, and these two little single holes are where everything starts. This is going to be a saddle stitch. So basically, you go in, you come out the same hole with both sets of strings. Now these holes aren't perfectly aligned, so it's going to be hard to pull the thread through. That's where a pair of pliers is useful. I'm going to center up my thread. That way I've got the same length on both sets of needles. Put the first one in. Now I'm going to put my next thread through the hole that I just put one in. Notice I'm holding the thread back out of the way because I don't want to pierce this piece of thread with the needle. When I try to tighten it, that will mess everything up. And I'll pull that snug. Now, I always try to work left to right, right to left. So starting the next one, I'll go in on the left, get it pulled through, hold this thread out of the way, go in with this one from the right, pull it through, and pull it tight. And that is the start of a basic saddle stitch. Yeah, I just about did something that's another good point to make. When I go through on the left, make sure not to have it over the right. It needs to be under when I'm doing it, because I don't think it would matter on this pattern, but when you're doing stitching like on a wallet or something, if you do one over the other, it makes the thread look a certain way. So if you were doing it one way to begin with and then switched it, it would be very evident. Okay, now that I've gotten to the end of my stitching, I'm going to stitch back a time or two with both pieces of thread to lock it off. And you see, I pierced that piece of thread. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to pull back out, pull it snug. I'm getting in my own way. Now I'll clip those threads as soon as I figure out where I lost my scissors at. Tell you, the most time-consuming part of leathercraft is finding the tool that you had just a second ago. I will cut my thread. Yes, and when it shreds like that, that's because you're using the wrong scissors to do the job and not holding the thread taut. pull out the lighter. And I'm just going to melt those ends. And smooth them out. Alright, there's one part done. Now, I'm going to do this other side, and then we'll be back in a second. Alright, well there we go. I've got the other horn completed. After getting this far done, I would say that I made the correct choice by picking that color thread. Okay, the next step of the process will be stitching this top part of the jaw to the back of the skull. After that is attached, now mind you, this is straight and this is a curve. That's going to force this to curve. After that's attached, this will come down. We will stitch the side of the jaw and then the mouth of the jaw. I'm going to do the back, and I'll do this side, and then we'll go from there. Now, there's a bit of disparity in how I cut this. I'd either have to pull the leather really taut or do a different stitch than what the designer intended. I'm going to do a different stitch. I think I can make that look better. You know, now that I did that, I think it would look better the other way. Okay, I'm going to finish this off different than what the original guy did. I'm going to tie a box knot. I'm going to pull it as tight as I want it to be. And we'll cut it and melt it. Okay, I may have been watching a TV show while stitching and forgot to cut the camera back on. Finish this side and this side. Now we're going to start on the jaw itself. Yeah, there's so many ways that this jaw could be stitched that I don't know what I want to do. So I'm just kind of playing with it at the moment. And when I find something I like, that's what'll make the final cut of the video. Okay, as for what's going on right now, I have done a different stitch than what was featured in the how-to video. I just kind of started doing, and that's what I ended up with. And I've just about ran out of thread. So I'm trying to get this off the end of the needle without messing it up too bad in order to try to finish it out. It might just be better to cut it. I'm just going to tie this off with another box knot. Now place your bets. Will I be able to duplicate that on the other side? I'm not holding my breath, neither should you. Time for another box knife. Alright, well there you have it. Now it's time to get that awesome outro shot. Ooh-wee. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Making the Makers. My name is Christopher and I've been your presenter. This pattern is the Buffalo Skull Keychain by Creative All. Link is in the video description. We'll see you next time.